Okay, let's see how we get on with this stream. Here we go. Okay, so we are live. All right. Okay. This. Okay. We will begin shortly. Let me just send out the live stream to everybody first. And then we will shortly begin with my analysis video. Don't worry, it's looking pretty good so far. Oh, okay. Publish. 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 Publish, and one more publish for good measure, wherever it is here, and we need to be in Cuppa Discord as well. Okay, cool. Okay, we've already got some viewers coming in. I'm going to open the stream. I'm going to turn off notifications on my phone, and then we are double checking. One more thing, because I have not replaced the thumbnail, I think. How do you... Oh well. Hey guys, hello Yuddy, hello Shane, hello Rolo, hello Josh. Okay, so as long as the stream is looking good, I don't really care so much about the featured image, though we would love to figure out how to change the featured image after the fact. It's not happening. Oh well. I can hopefully go in there and change it after that. So let's just give it a rundown of the March core and spam update analysis. Let's jump into things, give you guys a breakdown, because I don't want to be wasting too much time here, because I have literally, in an hour's time, got to go get a flight. So I will be leaving to go to the airport in 1 hour's time, directly after this. Okay, perfect. So we've got a fair amount of people on the live stream already. So we're going to begin. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the March core and spam update analysis video. This is broken down into one video, one live stream that is, simply because Google, despite years and years ago, Matt Cutts specifically saying that he would never like to release updates simultaneously because it's bad for the ecosystem, it's bad for algorithm updates, it's bad for their tracking and their understanding of the changes and a load of other reasons. They've recently been doing it a lot more often, right? So this is like the third or fourth time now that they've done overlapping updates. So it's just too difficult, realistically, to be able to pinpoint which algorithm update affected what. Yes, we can go off of Google's documentation and say, okay, well, if it's the spam update, then it's more likely to affect spam. And if it's the core update, it's more likely to affect this. But it's just too difficult, and we kind of lose ourselves in the data trying to split the data at that point, right? So it's better off if I can very, very simply, very easily put the data in together all in one go. So, and again, this is working, right? As long as we are live, because I can't currently see the chat properly, it's not coming up unless... Here we go, okay, hello to DealSpot, hello to Josh. Okay, so the live chat is coming up, and everything looks better. However, for some reason, the live stream window capture does not seem to want to do it. Okay, so I'm just going to have to change to a, yeah, it's not showing the presentation. Okay, cool, yeah. I thought so. I'm going to have to just change to a display capture. So here we go. Screw it, everybody. There. We're now in the video. Hopefully we can see this now live. There we go. Okay, cool. We are in. Okay, awesome. So restarting, going back from scratch. Again, this is like the second, third time I've ever live streamed on YouTube, and it's pretty difficult to get presentations for some reason on PowerPoint to work on here. So on to our presentation. Like I was saying, it's too difficult to split the analysis of the core and spam updates. So I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm just going to say what they affected as if they were the same update, because otherwise it's too convoluted, it conflicts with data, it affects a lot of things, right? So as with any algo analysis, and as with all of my algo analysis so far, correlation and causation are two different things. It does not necessarily mean that everything is a direct ranking signal, or everything that is being changed has got a 100% overview of that change being factual, right? This is a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to data science. However, I've got 16 years of experience with Google. I've got 16 years of experience with Google updates. I've dealt with every variation of Penguin. I've dealt with Panda. I've dealt with Hummingbird. I've dealt with Coffee. I've dealt with them all, right? All of the major updates that Google's basically ever released throughout its history as a company. I was there. I was analyzing them. I was dealing with them. I was sometimes dealing with the headaches of dealing with them as well. As well as the fact that it's also based, this entire analysis, on my niche-wide data and my site-wide data trends. So there's a lot of analysis across entire niches and across entire sites that is also then reinforced with our single variable testing data. And single variable testing literally means what it says on the tin. It means that you put a single element on a page that doesn't exist against any other pages except your own testing pages for a random query that didn't exist prior. And if those pages go up or down, then you can correlate those signals with this specifically as well. Okay. Awesome. There we go. It's now showing. Okay, perfect. If you are analyzing this update yourself, or these updates, I should say, yourself, bear in mind that, again, everything is going to be niche level or site level if you're only analyzing it at that level, right? Take all of your data with a pinch of salt, because I always take my initial data with a massive pinch of salt. I always try my hardest to make sure that I'm not corrupting my opinions and my findings early on in the process. And I try to look at the single variable testing last so that it reinforces that data. And then once I've done all of that, I'm then reinforcing it again with my network and my community of SEO experts and professionals that I've got around me. And I've built up some of the biggest names and the best names in the industry at their respected fields. Even, you know, some of the biggest names in the industry that we might fundamentally disagree on how you approach SEO, like Marie Haynes and Glenn Gabe. But these people are still in my network. We still talk, we still show each other data repeatedly about these updates and things. And that, again, helps massively reinforce my views, opinions, and analysis of these updates. So what was actually affected? And again, I don't really care what Google says at this point. Their documentation is a load of nonsense. It's factually incorrect in certain places. And I've tried my hardest not to corrupt my opinion and that data based on biases. And one of the biggest biases that I think people corrupt their opinion and their data on these updates with is reading Google's own documentation. We're reading what Google hopes to see out of its algorithm update, not what it is actually seeing, right? And that's why I think it is probably a bad idea to be reading the documentation before you've done a lot of the analysis, because it's going to corrupt and it's going to give you biases around that analysis. So then we have a continuation of the February and the September updates. So from what we can tell, Number one, obviously in September, it's called the September HCU, but actually the September HCU kind of started in August, and we really started seeing the effects from the HCU in August, despite it being announced and declared in September. The exact same thing has happened here, where we've started actually seeing the effects, and it maybe has been tested in February, and we've seen the full effects come into play when the update has rolled out in March. I'm getting a lot of DMs about all this as well. Hopefully it's all good though. Okay. So as I said, it seems to be a continually downgraded effect. So it seems to be that HCU affected websites, so the HCU in August and September has seemed to be a continuation within the February and now the March updates here. So it doesn't seem like anything changed. It just seemed to reinforce that classification, which again, Google did actually say that, to be fair to them. It said that they were baking in that classifier into the update, and it really did seem like they were honest in that specific case. So, in terms of what actually was affected, the most obvious one, unfortunately, every single update for the last 5 years, authority won again. Authority is up. It just seems to be like the major way, or if not maybe the only real way, that Google has been dealing with spam in any real seeming ability to do so, has just been jacking up authority every single update, which has resulted in obviously a lot of publishers being very pissed off with the fact that they're losing so much traffic, and a lot of sites that have got these large authority sites kind of manipulating the game, and that's why this parasite update has been happening more recently. Every single e-commerce query that I have been looking at, because again, we manage around 20 e-commerce sites at my family business, has been seeing authority win. Every single one. Every single time we have been analyzing e-commerce queries since February, all of our queries, the authority sites have been winning. That's flat out it. That's basically the end, right? Then brand intent is up again. So we see it across the board with a load of different specific types of sites, queries, and all sorts of stuff. But in general, what we can tell is that Google is now relying more so on brand signals. And when you start looking at specific queries, for example, best WordPress hosting, does it really make sense that WordPress should be number one when people are looking for best WordPress hosting? Yes, it does, from the instance that WordPress don't necessarily have skin in the game with their own specific hosting company. And yes, they are the original creator of the platform, but do they truly have an unbiased, unreal opinion? Or is it just the fact that Google has jacked up brand intent signals so much so that it's now taking over queries that used to previously be dominated by pages that were specifically targeting this keyword and not pages that were on the brand that were sort of answering the query? If you look at things like Dyson, it's gotten even more insane, right? We start to see 1, 2, 3 of the top spots, and even number 5 now, being taken over by Dyson.com's domain in and of itself. And again, is it fully a good idea to be having the brand controlling that messaging and controlling the reviews? Are people looking for brand reviews, or are they looking for unbiased, public, or journalist level reviews, right? I would say actually this is not answering Google's user intent as much, and it's kind of favoring, again, this corporatism and this brand favorment. And yes, it is probably good in some way and respects for us as SEOs, because it means our clients are going to get less pissed off when they've got negative reviews or online reputation management problems. But for user intent, is it better? I would probably say no. However, it's a very, very good example and a good reflection of how brand intent has been jacked up by Google over the last couple of years. Then we have e-commerce intent. So actually last year, Google was jacking up e-commerce intent quite significantly. And then this year, it seems that they started to, at the end of last year, they started to reverse that. So for the last couple of years, e-commerce intent had continually gone up. And then towards the end of last year, so around the December core update time, it ended up being the opposite. So we saw a drop off. And now we have seen that kind of recover, almost a reversal of the changes that they made in December. A lot of e-commerce sites I'm seeing that saw a drop in December have basically seen a full recovery in the traffic and rankings and positions that they lost in that update. And a lot of sites that didn't had got all the other issues that we're going to be talking about a little later on in this video. Again, e-commerce intent dropped and then it bounced up again. Some sites saw a full recovery, some sites didn't, but a lot of sites have seen that recovery happening in real time. UGC signals just got jacked up again. We see it on basically every forum on the planet. It doesn't matter if it's a massive forum, it doesn't matter if it's a tiny forum. You see in the first red arrow there in the left, that's September/August HCU, and then you just see the exact same thing happen again. It's almost as if all they did was whatever they did in September, they just doubled down on and increased those signals significantly. And you see it reflected across the board. This is not a standout example. You see it on even the smallest of forums where you are seeing these gigantic increases in traffic. In some cases, because these forums are so small, they are literally going from a couple of hundred visitors a month to tens of thousands of visitors a month from Google. It must be pretty weird if you are owning a forum that you thought was previously dead and maybe almost abandoned and maybe, had a post a month or something, suddenly receiving thousands of visits a day from Google. It's pretty bizarre. You see it again across even the smallest of forums. This is probably a really tiny example that I tried to find as many small examples of forums as possible, but both of those jumps you see specifically correlated with the September and the March helpful content classifications. Again, because they baked it into the algorithm, I don't really want to say that it's the HCU, it's now kind of the HCC. Because it's a helpful content classifier. And that's what's happening in September, but it wasn't baked into the algorithm. Now it's just a full part of the algorithm. It's going to be happening routinely for every website in the world, destroying small publishers in our wake. So, what else was lost then? We've seen UGC up, we've seen e-commerce go up, we've seen authority go up, we've seen all these things go up, but what went down? What lost in these updates? Well, the first thing was we saw further intent changes. So we just saw Reddit, for example, shifting up and taking even more places. It might have been the case that Reddit was maybe, and this is again in the organic results, not in the discussions and forums feature, within the organic results specifically, we saw Reddit maybe go from position 7, 8, 9, jumping to position 2 for a bunch of keywords across the board. Again, Google just doubling down on their love for Reddit. What I've repeatedly said to everybody is that Google loves to double down when it does so, and if you're following the updates, they tend to be trend-based, and it's Google doing the same things repeatedly. So don't expect Google to suddenly upend and turn course, and I've said that repeatedly to people who seem to think that these new algorithm updates are going to save their websites for some reason. Then we have link quality changes. So there's no specific link types. For example, guest posts are sometimes getting affected. Niche edits are a lot of the time affected because Google's changing the way it's looking at historical data and page edits and things like that. However, in general, link quality just means that a lot of the sites that were being mass sold, that were essentially guest post farms or link farms and things like that, they've now been neutralized. A lot of those sites have been hit, a lot of those sites have been taken out. Some have seen manual penalties, others have just seen huge algorithmic drops. Does that mean that link is now toxic? No, most of the time they're neutralized. That just means that they do nothing. They don't pass a signal regardless of what site they're linking to. However, it doesn't mean that they're toxic. So don't be scared that a lot of these sites that you maybe picked up, 4 or 5 years ago could now be affecting your site. It's very likely that they actually are. We also saw a drop in FAQ schema. Basically, every one of our single variable tests that's using FAQ schema seemed to drop quite considerably. Again, I don't know if it's just because of the kind of simple fact that SEOs kill everything that is good and glorious. But most of the time it does seem to be whenever Google is relying on a single factor or seemingly is relying on a factor that the SEOs tend to spam and ingest that in factor, so much so that Google tends to either just spit it out or not rely on it anymore. Again, I do think that it helps Google with its training, its AI, its training, its learning, its training, its data, it's doing all of this kind of stuff. So it's good for Google, but they are probably less reliant on it nowadays, and they don't care if you're using it as much as they wanted you to use it before when they needed that data initially. Then also we saw drops across hidden content. So this is the kind of stuff where you're seeing accordion and tabs and things. Again, all of our single variable testing and quite a few e-commerce websites that we still use this style on saw drops across the board. So that one was quite correlated quite heavily. So can we talk about recovery solutions? Are there any actual answers here to these problems? Well, the first one is that there's no actual evidence of recoveries. So unfortunately, regardless of what you say around HCU, there is no specific site level recovery. That being said, there is some evidence around content pruning. Unfortunately, that content pruning of evidence of HCU/HCC recoveries is deleting 99% of their website, which is still resulting in them losing 99% of their traffic because they don't have those pages any longer. Yes, the HCC might have been removed and some of your money pages are now back ranking. That's a good thing if you weren't having any rankings and not making any money beforehand, but you had to delete the majority of your site, the majority of your content, the majority of your investment in the first place to result in that. And that's not really a great recommendation, especially if that website can be used in other platforms and other channels. However, removing semantically disconnected and low quality pages is always going to be a good answer. And if you don't remove them, bear in mind, pruning doesn't necessarily mean you're straight out deleting things. It can mean you are improving and adapting something as well. Then we have the moving domains. So straight up, I've seen a few recoveries of people just straight moving domains or using the 301, the double 301 redirect trick. And that has actually seen 4 recoveries. It's just seemingly removed the classifier all together. And then finally, adding e-commerce. Slight bit of a joke here, to be honest, because I'm not that much of a fan of this. However, I have literally been seeing that some affiliate websites have been adding t-shirt stores, to their affiliate websites in an effort to have the cart system and e-com kind of intent shifting in their favor. And then also I've seen a couple ads-based blogs using carts as well. Is there any evidence that those sites have seen recovery? No, but they are out there and they are options for people to use if you want to do that. And I'm all for giving people as many options as they want. Thanks for watching. You can follow me on X. My X is @Charles_SEO, where I post a lot more content almost every day. If you want to consult with me, you can visit charlesfloatetraining.com. You can use code CFTYT300 to get $300 off per 1 hour call. That is only for 5 people. So just go to charlesfloatetraining.com, go to consulting and use that code CFTYT300 to get $300 off a 1 hour consulting call if you want to speak to me directly. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for coming. Unfortunately, I won't be answering any questions or comments in this one, but you can always go and reply to them on my Twitter or X because I have to go catch a flight, but I'll see you guys soon. Peace.